Welcome back to The Muddy Preacher. Now, we're going to continue our series on who wrote the books of the Bible and who they wrote them to with the Gospel of Mark. Now, the Gospel of Mark is the second book in the New Testament. And as of recently, come into a little bit of controversy on who may have written it and when it was written and whatnot. But for me, not a whole lot of controversy, to be honest with you. I've read the articles, I've heard the arguments for both sides, and I still come to one conclusion. And I encourage you to go and do the research. If you can see this video, you can get on the internet and do the research. And go to more than just Wikipedia. Do research if you want to get into this. But I firmly believe that the Gospel of Mark was written by a man named John Mark, who was a companion of Peter, and then became a companion of Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles, was a cousin of Barnabas, who was the other apostle to the Gentiles, and was the Mark who caused Barnabas and Paul to split up. And then later, Paul and Mark reconciled and became friends once more. So, you can find that story in Acts, and then later in the end of another letter of Paul's, and we'll talk about that again, another video. You'll see Paul and Mark reconcile. So, I firmly believe that the Gospel of Mark was written by John Mark. He would have had the access to Peter. He would have had the access to the other apostles. He would have had this information. So it makes sense to me that that would have been who it was. There's a lot made of the fact that, it's just like the Gospel of Matthew. And it's very, very similar to the Gospel of Luke. And they're so similar they have to be copies. Well, if we took 3 different people and told them to write a synopsis, a story of the last 3 years of your life, and they went out and interviewed a whole bunch of people who knew you for the last 3 years and wrote down 3 papers on the last 3 years of your life, I bet you they would all look very, very much the same. Not the same as the Gospels of Jesus, but those 3 papers would look the same as one another. So that doesn't mean anything. That just means that Jesus did the same thing in all 3 of them. Well, that's what Jesus did. Okay, I get it. So the other part of it is, if you look at people who were alive 80, 90, 100 years after the Gospel of Mark was written, which was probably 66 AD to 70 AD, they believe John Mark, without question, wrote the Gospel of Mark. That was 2,000 years ago, people. I'm guessing they knew better than we knew. So, now, who did Mark write his Gospel for? That's the interesting part here. The Gospel of Mark was written to take along with Barnabas and Paul for their journeys to the Gentiles, to bring the gospel message, to bring the message of Jesus to the Gentile world, as the apostles to the Gentiles. So they had a record of what Jesus had done. Another reason I believe Mark wrote the Gospel of Mark, because he went along for the first one. So it does not include some things that the other Gospels include. It does not have a record of the genealogy of Jesus through man, because it wouldn't have been important to the Gentiles. It does not have a lot of the issues between Jesus and the ruling council of the Jewish people, because it wouldn't have been important to the Gentiles. Now, Gentiles at that time were anyone who wasn't Jewish. It is shorter. It's very much action-based. It has a lot of, Jesus is a caster out of demons, a healer, a man of the people and doing things. But you don't see the appearances after the empty tomb that you see in some of the other Gospels. And you don't have the genealogies, you don't have the interactions with the ruling councils, because they would have been less important to a Gentile audience. Or that was Mark's purpose. So he pared it down, he cut it down and focused it on his message of getting it out to these people who had never studied the law, they never studied the Old Testament. He just wanted them to hear about Jesus, this man of miracles, this man of healing, that they would have never come across anything close to that before, so they could believe in Jesus. So if you're looking for a gospel book about a man of action and a man of healing, the Gospel of Mark may be a great place to start your journey with Jesus Christ. And that's what this series is about, getting you into the Bible. So signing off until next time, this is the Muddy Preacher, loving you in the name of Jesus.